In addition to a looming impeachment trial in Washington, former President Trump could also face possible criminal charges in New York. The state's attorney general is investigating the now private citizen and his company for tax fraud, while the Manhattan DA's office, which is pursuing a criminal investigation of the Trump Organization, has reportedly secured some of Mr. Trump's long sought-after tax returns. Ben Tracy is at the former president's new home in West Palm Beach with more on that. Good morning, Ben.
Anne-Marie, good morning. So former President Trump has been quiet since arriving here in Palm Beach, taking up residence at his Mar-a-Lago club and playing golf. He had claimed that while he was president, he could not be charged with a crime. Well, now that he's an ex-president, all bets are off.
Now that President Trump has said goodbye to the White House,
have a good life. We will see you soon.
There's a chance he could be saying hello to a lot of legal woes.
Now that Donald Trump is no longer president, he is in the shoes of any other normal citizen.
CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman says the former president's legal jeopardy stems mainly from two cases in New York. Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance is conducting a criminal investigation of the Trump Organization and has reportedly obtained some of Mr. Trump's long-sought tax records. Court filings show Vance may be investigating tax and insurance fraud, as well as falsification of business records. New York Attorney General Letitia James is also investigating the former president and his company for tax fraud.
My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything.
Mr. Trump's former personal attorney and convicted felon Michael Cohen acknowledges he's now providing information to prosecutors and believes indictments will be coming soon.
I do believe that it will be the New York prosecutors that will be first online within which to bring Donald Trump and family to justice.
What do you think the odds are that Donald Trump actually faces significant jail time or a prison term?
I think that on the state side, there is a good possibility that Donald Trump will face significant prison time if convicted.
The former president has not been charged with any crimes, so it's unclear how likely a conviction would be. But there are also civil suits brought by two women, former Apprentice contestant Summer Zervos and former Elle magazine writer E. Jean Carroll, who both accuse Mr. Trump of sexual assault.
So it's a total false accusation, and I don't know anything about her.
After he denied their claims, they sued for defamation, attempting to force Mr. Trump to be deposed under oath. And finally, there's a federal investigation into the assault on the Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
The Justice Department has not ruled out charging Mr. Trump for potentially inciting the riot, an extraordinary decision that would be made by the Biden administration's new presumptive attorney general, Merrick Garland.
Since the American founding, no former president has been criminally indicted.
CBS News' legal expert and analyst, Jeff Rosen.
It would be something unique, and that's why the Biden administration will think very hard before filing any kind of federal criminal charges.
Now, President Biden says his Justice Department will remain independent and make its own decisions. He was asked on the campaign trail if he would ever consider pardoning President Trump, and he emphatically said no. Anne-Marie.
Interesting. So there's a whole lot in your story there, but do we have a timeline? I mean, what's the likelihood that we could see former President Trump in court for any of these cases anytime soon?
Yeah, that's the big question. Obviously, the former president and his attorneys will do everything they can to keep him out of court to avoid the spectacle that would be, because as Jeff Rosen said, this is just unprecedented that we would ever have a former president who would be criminally charged or civilly charged. The case that seems to be the furthest along is that Manhattan District Attorney case, Cy Vance's case, that's investigating not only the president personally for tax fraud, but his company as well. The two defamation cases are interesting because E. Jean Carroll, that former writer, she has said that her goal is not to get money from the president. She doesn't really care about a settlement. So if the former president wants to settle that out of court, she doesn't want to do that. She wants to get him in a deposition, get him on the record, and make him admit to what she says he did. So there seems to be, in that case at least, a real desire to hold the former president accountable and perhaps to embarrass him in a deposition where he would either have to admit to something if it's true or lie about it if he wants to avoid that. Anne-Marie.
So on his way out, though, the president did pardon a lot of people. He did not pardon himself or members of his family, but he pardoned Steve Bannon, an advisor, a personal aide, at one point was in the White House working with him. Steve Bannon is accused of stealing from the president's own supporters, the foundation to help build the wall. I'm wondering if, this is more than just Steve Bannon was a supporter and a friend, that perhaps there's a little bit of strategy here, because Steve Bannon would know an awful lot about how the president lived his life, some of the things that, private conversations that they had. Any of those could contribute to any of these potential criminal charges or lawsuits that could be coming. So in other words, is he trying to keep Steve Bannon on his good side?
Yeah, that's unclear. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting in the next weeks or months what really happened between the president and Steve Bannon in the last couple of months, because they had not been talking for a very long time, and suddenly they seemed to reconcile. And reconcile to the point where he gave Steve Bannon that pardon you mentioned. The difference, I think, between pardoning Steve Bannon and deciding not to try to self-pardon himself or pardon some of his kids is Steve Bannon was facing charges. So there was an actual case for the president to respond to there. The problem with the president trying to preemptively pardon himself is two things. One, it does not help him with any of these state cases. Those are only, if he pardons himself, that only helps him with federal charges. There were legal questions as to whether or not a president can actually pardon themselves. And then there's the issue that accepting a pardon is actually an admission of guilt. So the president would have to acknowledge that he had done something wrong if he was going to accept a pardon, even if that pardon was coming from himself.
Interesting stuff, Ben Tracy. Enjoy the sunshine down there. Thank you so much.
Thanks.